Yeah, my name's Ron Roy. I joined the OPP in 1966. I come from a small town east of Sudbury, Warren. At that time, the OPP office was attached to my dad's apartment buildings, which is where we lived. And so I got to know all the OPP officers. As a matter of fact, one of the OPP officers was our scout leader. And I know often I'd see them out there and I'd say, nickels are better than coppers, nickels are better than coppers. So I always had an affinity for policing, and I had a choice between the RCMP and the OPP. The RCMP could go anywhere in Canada. With the OPP, you're going to stay within the province of Ontario. And that's the reason I decided to go with the OPP. I was 19 when I joined the police department. Not very worldly. Um, I was in the office maybe a month on the job, and a call came in that they hadn't seen a neighbor 2 blocks from the OPP detachment in a couple of days. And all the regular officers were all in court. So the sergeant said, Roy, because I couldn't drive a cruiser by myself at that time, he says, walk down and check that out. So I walked down to the house and knocked on the door, and there was no answer. So I jimmied open a window and crawled in through the window. And there was this male person laying in a bed, and I knew his name. The neighbors had told me what it was. And I went up and shook him, and he was stiff, 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 but I've never seen a body before. And as I'm shaking him, he had some liquid in his mouth, and all of a sudden, all I heard was, "Ooh." I dropped him, and I went and ran out the front door, and I went about 20 yards and said, "Don't think this is what I'm supposed to do." So put the brakes on and went back. Well, one of the things, and really even the recruiters don't think much about it, is how do you adjust to shift work? And in my career, I've had two rookies that had to quit because they could not function doing a 24-hour cycle job. So one thing I would suggest anybody wanting to apply, because police work is a 24-hour day job, is to try it out and see. Work 12 hours and how do you feel, and then do it again the next day and the next day. I can talk about my first and only UFO experience. Again, happened on the island. Uh, Myself and another officer were working graveyard shift. It was about probably about 2 o'clock in the morning. I looked over to my left, and there was this bright light following me, and I was doing about 40, 50 miles an hour, and all of a sudden I sped the cruiser up to about 100, and the light kept up to me, and all of a sudden in a flash, the light was by me. And so we followed it down a back road, and this light was hovering over the power cables. And we watched it for a couple hours. We phoned headquarters for NORAD to check, and they couldn't see anything. Anyway, a couple hours later, we went back out on the highway and we stopped this vehicle, just looking for a witness to it. And it so happens it was an American. He steps out of the car, looks at the light. He says, "Guys, don't worry about it. It's one of ours." Got in his car and left. I was the hostage negotiator, and I was a funeral commander, and I had, of course, NCO training and uh, firearms training, safe driving, all those other. But the specialty ones would be a funeral commander and hostage negotiator. No, several years ago, we had, I think, about 10, 10, 12 snowmobile fatalities in the Sudbury district. So we had a gathering at the OPP detachment with all the stakeholders, the snowmobile clubs and ambulance, police, whatnot, to see what we could do to bring those numbers down. And out of that meeting came the idea of empowering civilian members with powers to enforce the Snowmobile Act and Trespass to Property Act. And from that, the snowmobile stop program started, and it spread throughout the province. The start of it was unique to Sudbury. Yeah. When I was working, near the end of my career, I was in charge of traffic and marine for the District 13. And one of my functions was to attend local groups that were fighting impaired driving. And at that time, the mayor of the city of Sudbury, Peter Wong, was the chairman of Action Sudbury. And when he passed away, his widow asked if I'd take it over, and that's 28 years later, I'm still involved with it.